here we are, live, and ready to go. Hang on, there we go. Beautiful. All the buttons are pressed and everything is well. Hi, my name is Helena.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are Speaker Insight, where we help speakers, authors, and coaches to build a business on your terms. And really, we just share with you people that we love who are experts in their own field. And today is one of those days. So today is all around how to get started with your writing of a book, because so many people inside our group, we run a group called the Connection Hub. We've got around about 5,800 like-minded, like-valued speakers, authors, and coaches, all kind of having conversations about being in this world of changing the world.
Links in the comments.
There we go. So Lucy today is going to help us to really kind of explore this area. But before we do that, I'm just going to let you all come along. Kelly's driving down here on the laptop. So
sharing, yeah, you might not be able to see my laptop. I'm not staring at my feet.
Yeah, so she's not being shy, or anything. So we're going to kick off with a little bit of buzz in our business. I know a couple of you have already joined us live, so do tell us the buzz in your business. We would love to know. You know, what's interesting, exciting, intriguing that's happening for you.
Promote stuff.
Yes,
right?
Tell us what you're doing. It's really cool. So basically, the buzz in our business is that we are now cracking on with actually sorting out the details of our retreat, because we run a Speaker Insight retreat where we really help to kind of put the foundations into people's businesses over the course of a weekend. Kind of, they come out with a business in a box, really, don't they? And usually one that they didn't anticipate or expect at all, and slightly bigger, that really makes a difference in the world. And this one is sold out. So this one's happening in March, but the next one is coming up in September, on the 11th to the 13th, I believe.
Yeah, links in the comments.
Yes, and so giving the slight nod to love, because it is of course Valentine's Day on Friday. Yeah, Friday. So get your cards in. We are going to act as your Cupid reminders and just, you know, do whatever you need to do to show love in the world. And remember, love can be shown not just to one core relationship, but to friends as well,
and to yourself.
Yes, and there it is. And
if you're not in a relationship, have a spa day.
Yeah, oh, nice. If you are, have a spa day. You know, either way, it all works. It's good. So we're kind of going to share a little bit of love as we go. And Lucy is one of the people that we love most dearly in our little black book. So when it sort of came to how and when to write a book, it was obvious that Lucy was going to be the person. But before we start asking you a whole bunch of questions about that, what's the buzz in your business?
Well, the buzz in my business at the moment is the Business Book Awards, which always kind of come to a head, as it were, at the beginning of the year. So this year we found that we had almost doubled the number of entries, which was quite a surprise to us.
Wow.
So we had 270 entries, and I have been absolutely pushing for more women to write their business books, and we doubled the number of women who entered business books
Amazing.
last year, and we also got lots more men as well, which is great, which is wonderful. But the percentage is up from 30% women to 40% of women authors who entered. So we've done the shortlisting, and we will be having the big event, the dinner and the awards event, on the 23rd of March.
Yeah.
So
I've put that in the comments, hon,
Oh,
so
fabulous.
Look at that. But for people who maybe, because I know lots of Connection Hub members were nominated this year, last year, you know, so we know you've got a lot of our crew in your world. But even if somebody hasn't written a book yet or is part of the awards, you still encourage them to come to the awards in March, don't you? Because it's a great network.
Absolutely.
Event.
It's just a brilliant evening. It's kind of been it's been called the Business Book Oscars by some people. Maybe pushing it a bit, but it is a lovely, lovely evening.
Listen, the borrowed credibility, we are completely in approval of that one.
That's what you're known for and seen as, what other people say.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's a lovely dinner. It's full of publishers, authors, business people. It's just the most brilliant networking event, and actually lots of book deals get done at the Business Book Awards. So and definitely come along if you'd like to have a good evening.
Yeah.
And I think for the topic that we're actually talking about today, just around being inspired, you know, they say that, you know, be around the 5 people who are doing the thing that you most want to do. And, you know, what a better way to hang out with a group of people. If you're an aspiring author, or you haven't quite given yourself the permission, or you haven't quite gathered up the courage yet to do so, there's no better way than to actually immerse yourself in the culture of something like that. So we highly encourage you to go. And I'm also going to say good morning, Amy, because we love the global audience that we've got.
So, Jo's on too. She said that she came away from the retreat with so much more.
Oh, how delicious. Yes, Jo. And
we know that there's lots of other
that.
people that are watching. So say hi in the comments. And if you're watching this on the replay, just put hashtag replay in there so we can watch with you, but also you can tag us and Lucy of any questions, because Lucy's in our world. She's in the Connection Hub. She's in our membership program, so she's everywhere.
She's everywhere. We love her lots, you know, sort of like, so it's appropriate, really. So for those of you that don't know Lucy, let me let her introduce herself. So tell us a little bit about your background, Lucy, both with Rethink Press and why you set up A Book of One's Own.
Okay, so I started off many moons ago in publishing, and then I went in and out of things like TV and work-life balance and other assorted things, and came back to publishing properly about 10 years ago when I set up Rethink Press with my business partner, Jo Gregory. And we saw a real need for a publishing company that specialized in business books for entrepreneur authors. So we are a hybrid publisher, and we have now published over 400 business books, business and self-development books.
And I've just put a link down there for Rethink, so and people in our world will be familiar with Jo, because we did a Facebook Live with him on how to write book titles.
Yeah.
So they already know Jo. Now it's introducing them to you.
That's right.
Right. So that was Rethink Press, and no, I don't mean it was Rethink Press, that is Rethink Press. And then about 3 years ago, I founded the Business Book Awards to celebrate authors and publishers in that space, because business books have been growing and have been becoming more professional, and I really think they have a genuinely positive impact on business generally. It's a wonderful way to share knowledge and experience and help others become better at what they do. So we set up the Business Book Awards, and the first year we had a 50-50 gender split of wonderful judging panel. As I said, we had about a third of women entrants, but we ended up, and not to blame anybody and not to say the winners weren't brilliant, but we ended up with all our winners being white men. Very, very good white male authors, excellent and wonderful, but not exactly as I had expected. So I then did a load of research about the position of women in publishing and in business, and realized that there just is a lot of unconscious and possibly some conscious bias. So I wrote a book called A Book of One's Own, which is I hope, an encouragement for more women to write their business books, put themselves out there, to dare, to be brave and do that. And that's what I've been, and I've also been mentoring some women to go through that process, and that's what A Book of One's Own is about.
And I'm definitely going to say this, you know, I've read that a couple of times, and it's one of my go-to kind of sendaways, because it is exactly what a business book should be, in my opinion, and, you know, so humble opinion here. But what I mean by that is that it gives a methodology. It means that if I haven't got access to a Lucy in my life, I have access to the methodology that allows me to really start writing a book, and it lays it out beautifully. But it also gives the experiences and through the interviews that you've done with the people who've done it, the case studies, it really does harness the power of that, so that anyone reading it can actually be inspired alongside, whilst also really laying out and following the methodology that you've got in there. I mean, you basically have, if you want to write a book, you have no choice but to actually finish it by the time you've kind of read the book. There are no excuses. So it is a brilliant book, hun.
And we really appreciate it. I've put the links to the book and also the Facebook group that's associated with that in the comments.
Thank
you. I really honor you, because obviously the same thing. We've noticed that trend.
Yeah.
And even though Speaker Insight is for both men and women,
yeah,
and my speaker agency manages, again, it's the men that are the ones that have the profile, that are, you know, have that positioning. And actually we're still at a 70-30% split of men and women, and we're desperate for professionals, women speakers that are at the level though. So it's not saying that they're not good speakers out there, similarly as not good authors, but we as experts need to help position them better.
That's right.
And that's what you're doing with this book,
which is just
which
great.
we really appreciate you actually giving that support out there.
But I have to say, whether you're male or female, get the book anyway, because it is just brilliant.
But I think there's such a strong link between writing and speaking. Once you've written your book, you become a more confident speaker, and so the book helps you to become a speaker. It positions you, and you know, you've got much more chance of getting speaking gigs when you present yourself as a published author.
Completely.
And we know that, you know, in the Connection Hub, we see a lot of people talking about wanting to write a book. So what do you think? Most people have got a book in them, whether it's a fiction book, an autobiography, a business book, whatever it is. Most of us could have got interesting lives to actually get a book out. So what stops people from actually writing a book generally? What do you find with the people you coach?
I think from a lot of people, it's simply, where do I begin? How do I do this? I don't know, you know, I can see other people publishing books, but how on earth did they do it? Where did they start? And there's that side of it. So not knowing how to access the information about writing. And then also, you know, you can write a book on your own, but, you know, then how do you get it published? That's something that people find hard sometimes. But I think the other side of it is just lack of confidence. You know, have I done enough? Do I know enough? Is anybody?
Am I good enough?
Am I good enough? Yeah, exactly. Am I going to make a fool of myself if I try and publish a book? And I think that's what holds a lot of people back. And actually, I have to say the confidence thing is especially something I find with women, and the fear of criticism is something that all the women authors I interviewed told me that had, you know, been a really big kind of issue for them. So I think both those things, the how and the you know, the confidence.
And with people that have had the confidence and they've been working with you, what do you think has made the shift for them to help them gain more confidence or get out of their own way?
I think to understand that actually the process I take them through for planning, especially planning their book as well as writing it, shows them that they really, really know a lot of stuff. You know, that they have got the content there. They just didn't think that it would fall into a book-shaped document so easily. And it's just realizing that their book is there to, you know, to help. Not necessarily, it's not about becoming a bestseller. It's not about selling millions of copies. And I think that also holds people back. You know, how could I market this book? How do I make loads of money from selling books? And actually, that is not what it's about. Your book is about helping your niche market. And that can be very niche in some cases. And it's about providing you with an extra platform for your business to market itself, but it's about helping your potential clients, your prospects, helping them understand what you do. Some of them will just go away and say, yep, that's really helpful. I can use that. I can do it myself. But ideally for you, you know, the right people will come back to you and say, God, this author knows his stuff. I want to come and work with them. And so it's not about, you know, selling loads of individual copies and making, you know, £1 or £2 on each one. It's about getting some really good clients to come back and pay you good money to work with you.
It is really interesting just hearing you sort of say all of that, because of course I'm thinking about the retreat that we've got coming up, and putting those foundations in and positioning is such an important thing that we definitely talk about that a lot, don't we?
And I think what you said there about, and I think this is a really good thing for most people from a confidence, is when you shift your focus on serving rather than am I good enough, and whether this is public speaking, whether this is writing, when you focus and you have your intention on helping others, even if that book just changed one person's life, you've done your job.
It's worth
right?
it.
So you take that pressure off of being a bestseller.
But I think the other thing that goes on is that in the process of actually doing the writing, doing the research, fathoming out what you actually know, you, by the very nature of that, cannot help but be more confident about what you know and how you actually go about doing it, because you can't deny the reams and reams of stuff that you actually go, hang on a minute, I did all of that, and I can.
And then you get the testimonials and reviews, and it's like self-fulfilling prophecy, really.
So, yeah, I mean, go on.
I was going to say, the first reason I always give for people to write their book is, even if nobody else ever reads it, you planning it out, you writing it out and unpacking your knowledge, your business, your process will just make your business so much better, and your confidence, and you have that archive of material in your head once you've written it. So even if you never get any further than writing the book, it's still worth doing.
So the natural next thing for me to ask you is definitely this then is okay, so how do people get started? So I get that whole kind of collecting of data and everything, but what do you suggest around how do people go about that? Is there software that you suggest? Should they put it in Evernote? Should they speak it? What should they do to get started?
Well, I use, when I'm working with people, in person, we use very basic index cards. And 5 colors of index cards. But the thing to start with is a pack of, I always use white index cards, and just write, instead of starting from the top, like in a sort of hierarchical structural way, where you say, okay, these are the parts my book falls into, these are the chapters, now I need to fill them up. I go the other way. I start from the bottom and I say, what are the key things, topics that you need to tell your ideal client or your ideal book reader, which actually is the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So just if you can write the title of 30 to 40 topics on that many white index cards, and think of them as sort of blog post length topics, that you will, you can write 500 to 1,000 words on each of these, and just do that really intuitively. Don't think about, what order they come in, just, what do you need to tell that person? What are the things you need to get across to them? Then you've got 30 or 40,000 words there, which is actually the length of a book. You've just got to write the detail, but those are the topics.
I'm very worried because Amy's
I know that was why I was looking at the laptop. I don't know if you saw me looking at the laptop just then. I was waiting for a little comment from Amy, who is on here, because Amy's got her blog post planned until probably May December.
Well, I think it's May this year. She's already got everything written, but she's a content queen. She's based in America at the moment. And so we know that this is going to,
so basically, Amy, what Lucy's saying is, honey, you've already got a book.
About 10 books in you. But what I love what you're saying, Lucy, there is actually, if you look at this as like a cake. So if you want to have a chocolate cake, you want to know what problem or purpose your book solves, which is, I want to create a chocolate cake, then you're saying, okay, what are all the ingredients that you need to make the chocolate cake? Well, you need chocolate and you need flour. I'm not going to go any further because I don't cook and I don't know what goes in. I was just going to say that. I would have enjoyed that. But then you've got all those index cards of the ingredients that then you can start going, well, actually, these are all types of chocolate, dark, milk, blah, blah, blah. That goes in one section together. And I know your book does this because I love the index card section in your book. But this is a really nice way of reverse engineering. Who's your book for? What's the big problem it's going to solve? What are the things that need to be in that book in order to solve that problem?
And it's also a really inviting thing for anyone who has been caught in that deer in the headlights panic kind of mode around, oh my God, I must get my structure, because so many people don't do it your way. They don't do bottom up. They do have the hierarchy, fit things in and everything else, which I think can paralyze some people or really put themselves into that panic mode around, oh, I can't possibly think that up. This just gives permission, I think, to a whole bunch of people to even do it over the course of a month, because that's pretty much what I've been doing with mine around the white cards. And I literally am just carrying them with me. So as I do with Mom, I'm just literally carrying them with me because of circumstantial things that are happening. And it's a brilliant thing to do. So I'm really, grateful that you've shared that.
That's great. And that provides a really easy way to write the book as well.
Yeah,
because
it provides a structure for it, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you do need to do a bit more work after that, and you do need to put it then into chapters and have a proper flow through and think about your process and how you get that across to clients. And add case studies. Case studies are absolutely key to a good business book.
Yeah, completely. What I was going to say was, though, it's like anything. So one of the best creative things I've ever told anyone to do, and it's the simplest thing in the world is
the 4 intentions.
No, it's not the 4 intentions, but the 4 intentions definitely do come in. I wasn't actually going to say that. I was literally going to hold up a blank page, and because the blank page is the most scary thing for most people. And I remember, like, out of desperation, this person was completely paralyzed in front of me, wasn't wanting to do any of the writing and stuff. And I literally went, okay, so let's make sure the page isn't blank. And I literally made them draw a border around the edge of the page. And because the page was no longer empty, it was so much easier to start. And that's what your index cards do. Because you've suddenly got this collection of thoughts, that you've suddenly got stuff that you can do with. And I think, as in terms of psychology, we are people who naturally sort things. Yeah. Blank pages can scare us, but actually sorting.
I hate a blank page.
There you go. And so honestly, it's the weirdest thing in the world, Alex, but like, seriously, just draw a little wiggly line or do something in the corners. It makes it not a blank page, and suddenly it's okay to make a mistake on that page because it's already got stuff on it. I know it sounds weird, but it's a really good bypass.
Really yeah. And another way to then expand each card is to take a bit of A4 paper and just write the title at the top, and then 1, 2, 3 headings within. And that, and then you've just got to unpack a couple of paragraphs for each of those 3 headings, and there's your section.
Brilliant.
And Alison's saying that's how I do it. I put all my research background info on the page and start writing above it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I would.
And, and in that getting started place then, or the index cards, when people are, I know a lot of people that come and say, oh, for example, I'm dyslexic. I have a big barrier around writing. Yeah. So do you have any software tips, tools around actually starting the writing bit? Once you've got the structure you've done,
I mean, personally, for actual writing, I just use Word, and I have a document for each chapter. That's how I do it.
Nice.
Some people love Scrivener because that helps you plan.
Yeah.
I mean, you can start in things like Notes and Evernote and stuff, but you have to end up with a Word document for publishing. That is the default software for publishing. But of course, if writing itself is a barrier to you, then talk it through. Then record it by audio. Get it. So who do this on car journeys,
Well, I was literally about to say that. That is I'm an Otter girl, and so
I'll just put a link to Otter in here because we use Otter loads.
Yeah, just because I knew I would be sharing this. So Otter allows me in the car to literally sit there, and for those of you who do use Otter, don't forget you can actually do a little pause function. So you can actually sit and think about things in the car without it recording the pauses. It just literally records when you speak. And out at the end of it, you literally come home and you can print out a whole bunch of notes and on the thoughts that you're having. It is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so anyone who puts, the dyslexia kind of thing, it's a moot point now, so all the barriers that you could put in your head, in front of you around writing a book, you don't need to.
And Sarah's saying she loves Scrivener, super for research, and she loves the corkboard. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the corkboard's awesome.
Yeah. So let's bust some myths. I know you've alluded to some of this in our pre-talk, Lucy, but for people that are going, okay, I have no expectations on how long a business book, let's focus on the business book. On average, how long is a business book? And on average, how long does it take for people to write that business book?
Okay, well, so the average and most popular length for a business book at the moment is only between 30 and 40,000 words. Now, that's really not a huge amount of words. It sounds big, but if you think that a reasonably short novel is about 80,000 words, we're actually much better off writing business books. People for a business book, and you write less.
Yeah.
If you think it's 30 1,000-word blog posts, and you may have already written those, or I mean, it's just not, it's not a huge amount. 40,000, I really wouldn't go much over 40,000, because what people really want, what readers want, is an easy to digest but value packed book that they can read quickly and go away and implement in their life or their business, or come back to you and say, come and do that for me. So that's
because it would be great, wouldn't it, Lucy, if you could write a book that was in WH Smith travel stores, where a business person could jump on a flight to Paris, pick your book up, read it there and back, and then implement it straight away, rather than it be War and Peace that never gets off the shelf.
I literally did a clutter clear of all the fattest books on my shelf over the weekend.
That's a bit bookist.
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing is, it is a bit bookist, isn't it? But it was literally that whole factor of, I literally sat and there's this gorgeous collection of, you know, Spanish stories that have been translated, but it's this big, and I just went, it made my heart sink, it made my energy sink, and I was just like, no, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. I'm going to gift that to somebody else who might take care of time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's not a huge, it's, you know, it's very doable, I would say. And in terms of the time that takes to write, I mean, you could, it depends how you do it, but you could, you know, take yourself off. You could write that if you're really kind of, if you've really got the plan and the structure in place, you could go off and do it in a week or 10 days. I mean, people do.
Yeah,
but
we're off to Morocco to write. Oh,
wow, that's brilliant. But I think also a good way of thinking of it is to say, you know, sort of 3 to 4 months is a perfectly reasonable time to do it. Right. You know, that gives you a bit of time to, and I also think, I mean, I'm sure you've already done this in any case, but actually processing as you write is quite important. Yeah. So I mean, one of the ways I know that a lot of the people I work with find a writing habit is to say, I'm going to steal an hour out of each day. Whether it's right at the beginning, I get up an hour earlier and I just write before I've started the day, or whether I'm an end of the day person, or whether my lunch hour is when I'm going to write. But if you do that regularly, you can get through a first draft in 6 weeks. Let's say, you know, 2 months. And that's, you know, that's fine. That's a good amount of time to, you know, spend writing a book. And then you need
it's also important to then think about, you know, what is that distraction time? So if you're getting up before the kids and everything else, and that's a quiet time, or it might be the fact that you actually need to take yourself into a different environment.
I was just going to say, the environment factor is so massive, and so many people ignore it. Yeah,
whether it's in nature, whether it's
go.
No, just coffee shops, libraries, nature, wherever it might be.
And I'm going to say this, because actually sometimes poor people, so this is definitely part of the coaching that I do with people, is sometimes the environment factor is the different environments, nature, etc. But actually sometimes it's simply going to a different place in your own house. Because sometimes actually the factor of, you know, the 15-minute journey there and back actually kind of get in the way of life. So one of the ways to get around that is to absolutely do so there's a place in my house where I read. And there's a place in my house where I write content, and there's a place in my house where I actually gather stuff together. So
that's sometimes, the rest of the house.
Yeah, that is the rest of the, admittedly, that is the rest of the house. But what I mean is in terms of the research. So sometimes it's actually about allocating, because I'm about to, you know, and actually I'll ask you another question on top of this, but things that get in our way can absolutely be, I haven't got the right space. Well, carving out the right space is a really good thing to do. I literally bought at the tip the other day, I literally bought one of those old Jane Austen bureaus that's no wider than this chair to actually sit and write on. So, and it was a tenner, like, you know, I mean, it was literally a tenner. It's this old classic, beautiful
standing desk.
But the standing desk is for other things. So this is
I totally agree, Helena. When I was writing a book of one's own, I know this sounds really silly. I've got a desk which is sort of freestanding in the room. It's not up against a wall. I work on one side of the desk, and then I turn my laptop round and I sit on the other side of the desk to write.
And there it is.
That just sounds mad, but
so there.
kind of about
Amy's agreeing. She writes her blogs at 5 a.m. She totally agrees with the dedicated time regularly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you know, that's one of the things that can get in people's ways. What mistakes do people also make that kind of send them off track? What else do you see so that we can highlight those?
Yeah, what the mistakes people the biggest mistake people make is not to plan before they start writing, is not to have a really detailed structure in place. So when you've done your 30,000, your 30, white cards, topics, then you really do have to structure them. Then you have to think chapters. You have to think, does my book fall into bigger sections like part 1, part 2, part 3? It may or it may not. It might just have 8 chapters or 5 chapters or 12 chapters, but they should all be about the same length. Consistency is what makes for a good structure.
Yeah, you don't want chapter 1 to be 10,000 words, chapter 2 to be
exactly, because that's a really bumpy read for your reader. It feels, if you're the feeling of professionalism, of being in the hands of a competent author, and that's about having a nice consistent, even structure to your book. And also that really important is to think about the case studies and things like that you're going to add to illustrate, because your case studies in a business book are your kind of under the radar marketing. So you're not putting in cards. Yes, you're not putting in testimonials, or you're not saying, oh, look at my amazing course that I do, or and giving them links, or being salesy. But you just tell them a little story of somebody you worked with and a problem they had, an intervention you made, and the result, 250 words. And the more of those you can just drop in here and there as little illustrations, the more people are going to think, one of those is me. I am that person. I need that help.
And one of the things we definitely encourage people to do when we're kind of coaching them, or, indeed at places like the retreat, is to consistently, whether you're thinking about writing a book or whether you're not, to consistently be actually pulling those stories in and having somewhere where you regularly put those stories. Because here's the thing, you are all magic workers, and you forget the magic that you make with people. So even if it's once a month or once every couple of weeks, where you sit back and you just go, what magic have I created? Who have I impacted? What have I actually done? What have people said to me that I could capture as stories that allow you to put them into? And now I'm going wider than the book, but that allow you to put them into your talks as illustrations. Your stories are unique to you because you created those with the people that you're working with.
But they bring your stuff to life,
and that's exactly
what they do. They, as you said, people see themselves in the situation rather than just thinking, I could use that methodology. They go, I'm exactly like Bob. I'm where Bob is, and I want Bob's results.
And that's
exactly.
And the thing about that is that actually you will forget the story, and you won't remember when you come to write the book. So my recommendation is always start to capture your stories. Actually open up a story file on your laptop or wherever you keep things, and actually just regularly put a date in your diary where you go, what stories have I generated this month? Because you never know, in 6 months' time, when you come to write your book, if that's what you choose, you've got them ready made.
Yeah. And then you've just got to decide where they fit into your topics, where they best illustrate a point you're making.
And so the plan, and obviously it's like music to our ears, with structure being our highest value, but planning is where most people will fall down, because they just write. And then most people, and this leads into my question really, when people are actually at the early stage of their book and they come to us, they've normally written their book, and we're like, oh no, right? So how important do you believe a book proposal is before you start writing the process? And for people that don't know what a book proposal is,
what is one?
Could you explain it to them as well, and how people would use that, whether it's with a traditional publisher or a hybrid? Just give us some insight into book proposals.
I think it is very useful to write a short overview of your book. and write it as a pitch, as a selling document, even if you don't show it to anybody else. Again, it gets the whole concept together in your head. And also it's incredibly useful to have it ready, because if you start talking to people about I'm writing a book, which you should do as soon as you're kind of, to keep yourself accountable, but also because the value of being perceived as an author can start really early before the book's out. But then if somebody says to you, you know, have you got anything, can you send me anything on your book? Or, you know, maybe I'd like to think about you as a speaker. What are you going to write about? Then you've got this document there. So that's a really useful reason to have it there. So there's really two sorts of pitch document. The kind of pitch that a proposal really that a traditional publisher will want is quite long and involved, and it involves looking at the commercial proposition as well as sort of saying, you know, this is a brilliant book and this is what I'm going to put in it, and here's me, the author, and look how good I am. So you know, you do need to be able to sell yourself as well. They will also, a traditional publisher will be looking at what the sales potential of your book is. They invest in your book, and the only way they can get their money back is to sell lots of books. So they need to know that you have a big following on social media, or you do lots of talks or workshops where your book can be sold, or, you know, whatever it is, your name is known. So for, I would say, for a traditional publisher, look around, look in the Writers and Artists Yearbook, or find out what publishers are publishing your sort of book. Go to their website and look at their submissions guidelines and follow those to the letter. They will tell you exactly what they want to hear from you. And don't, you know, kind of mess around doing, oh, I think I could say it better this way. You know, want to hear it your way. Do
the process.
Exactly. So
with that, what they're very interested in your proposal of a marketing plan for your book. Because I really want to highlight, whether you traditionally publish, hybrid publish, self-publish, you need to market your book yourself in any scenario, right? You'll get different levels of support, but it's not, oh, I traditionally publish and I never have to speak about my book.
No, oh no, traditional publishers want you to do as much work as possible.
Well, you know, in the analogy of children, it is your baby and you do get to look after it, and you know best how to nurture it and actually kind of who to show it to and who not to show it to. Right?
I think as well as the marketing with the traditionals, I think what they also want to see is that you've done research into your demographic and your avatar. So what are the other books that are out there at the moment? What's your USP? What's the demand? What's the population? What's the numbers around people with this problem that you're helping? So all this research also helps people with the confidence issue, because when they go, there's a massive need here and nobody's talking about this part of the book, that actually gives you an angle to go, I'm going to really hone in on this niche, because there's loads of books that cover this, but nothing that covers this.
Exactly.
I was having a peer at the screen then, because actually we squeezed in the word avatar 37 minutes into this interview, which is quite impressive.
I've got a comment from Alison. I wouldn't start without one. So I'm sure she's talking about the book proposal. It forces you to concretize. She's a copywriter.
I know.
Concretize the structure, outline its unique selling points and the gap in the market that it addresses.
Completely agree. And
then what's the second one that you were going to talk about?
So the second one, if you're hybrid publishing, or even if you're self-publishing, then you can write something shorter, maybe 1,000 words, but do a quick summary of what I call your market, who's your ideal client or reader, what their main problem is, you know, in general, and that actually will be really useful in terms of formulating your title and subtitle, because that should
get their attention.
It does.
It should be clear who the book's for, what their problem is, and what your big promise is. So that's
and if you need more help on that, watch the Facebook Live with Joe, who does a whole deep dive on how to write titles.
Exactly. It all fits together. And then write something about you as the author, you know, kind of just pull out all the things that are relevant to you as the author of your book, and write a little author bio, because you'll need to do that for your book anyway. So make that the next paragraph or two, and then write an extended bit about what's in the book, it might be sort of like picking out one of your case studies and saying, you know, this is so and so, he had this problem and we did this, but also you will need to find out, as Joe probably said, for the back cover blurb, you'll need to identify the 5 benefits, the 5 bullets of benefits. So 5 bullet points that your book is going to teach your author. And also really important, if you have a process, then get that into the book.
Like your own intellectual property.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. So that's, you know, those, and then you've got to really, and then say at the end how you think you're going to publish it, when, you know, some timings, you may not stick to those, but you know, that's a nice little sort of consolidated book pitch. And then follow that, not necessarily for public consumption, but make sure you then take your cards, your structure, and write yourself a long, detailed contents list and work from that. That is the blueprint of your book. And if you write from that, it means if you've got enough detail, you don't even have to write in chronological order. You can just pick the thing that appeals to you that day, take your card with you and dig and you know, record what you have to say about it on a car journey. And then, you know, you just tick it off and you fit it in, and you've got, you know, you end up writing your book that way. So without that detailed structure, it's so easy to go off the rails. And I think that's why a lot of people start what I call the 1-page book. They think, oh, it's all in my head, I know exactly what I'm talking about. They start writing, and then somehow it gets a bit kind of misty, and they can't quite see the wood for the trees. And you know, then there's the, what do I write next? Where do I go from here? But actually, if you've got your blueprint, you never have writer's block, because you never ask the question, what comes next?
That's right.
And I think that, and I really want to highlight that this stuff, the planning, the book proposal, should all be done before you start writing, because there's, you know, even coming to you as a hybrid publisher with somebody that's basically got a book that has none of this stuff, most of the time they make so much more work for themselves, because they have to go and rewrite the book and realize there's actually 4 books in that.
And that's right. You know, it's with the greatest, you know, sort of love in the world. You know, you'd be wasting your time if you start without doing these things, because, you know, and time is the most precious thing that you actually have. So basically just don't do it. Is what we're saying. So
it's very clear to me as a publisher, when people submit their manuscripts, if they've planned and then written, I can see it in the manuscript. If they haven't planned, they're probably going to get a thing from me saying, sorry, we need to get a bit more structure into this, and let's go back to square one.
It just makes complete sense. So I am sure that all of you realize by now that we could speak to Lucy for ages and ages. We could absolutely kind of use the wisdom in her brain, but I think people might like to do that for themselves, Lucy. So what's the best way to get in touch with you, and how can you help people take that first or next step?
Well, probably the easiest way is to find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, or email me at lucy@rethinkpress.com. I've got a surname that's
we don't talk about your surname. It's on the screen, people. That's cool. And it doesn't sound like it
it's actually pronounced Makara, but I do think I am the only Lucy Makara in the whole of the online world, which is handy.
You're the only one worth knowing anyway.
That's right. Well said.
So do feel free to friend me, or to to message me or whatever there. And then at Rethink Press, we have a whole sort of, we do book plan, one-to-one book plan workshops. We do book buddying, which is coaching through writing your book. We do something called Booksmith, which is actually having your book written by a professional for you, which is a great way if you're busy, or writing is not your thing, get a professional in to do it. And then if you're a woman wanting support with writing their book, come and join my ABU, A Book of One's Own Facebook group, which is a lovely collection of women authors and not authors yet, but people wanting to be authors.
It's an inspiring set of
and
people.
Get your book as well, right?
Yes, of course, do buy the book.
And that's for men and women, right?
Completely. I mean, it whilst it's intended in that way, it is just everything that Lucy's spoken about. I cannot recommend a better step right now, which is exactly what we're talking about, to get the book, which will connect you through to the ideas of this wonderful person that sat in front of us, sort of. in the virtual world. So we look forward to seeing you in the real world at some point soon, Lucy. And just thank you for, you know, sharing your wisdom and your generosity with everybody.
It's been lovely. And if anybody wants to ask any questions in your group, you know, just put them there, tag me, and I'm happy to answer.
Brilliant.
We will tag you if any comments come in from the replay people. I know people watch our stuff years down the line, so always make sure to tag us because we put it in our recordings. But I know this is going to be a very valuable one for the budding authors in our group, to get them started, to get them out of their way, and getting them writing something that is effective of their time rather than wasting it. So we really appreciate your insight and your wisdom. Have a great day, everybody. See you later. See you next week.